Shut up, compressor.
Off with 4 at 1-8, over. Roger, take care.
Hey everyone, Matt here with Dukes Models, and welcome to episode 10 of the Tamiya F-4B Phantom build. Now, we've gone ahead and painted everything, we've gone ahead and handled the basic part of the metallics down around the heat shield, and now it's time to move into decals. And I have this thing upside down because I want to start with the insignias, and I want to start on the bottom just to make sure that there aren't any issues that I'm going to run into when I get around to doing the upper ones, especially with these especially with these folded wings. Now, you may be wondering why I'm not masking and painting all of the markings. And there are a couple of reasons for it. First of all, I'm just lazy. Second of all, these folded wings present some challenges to getting into them to actually do the masking, particularly on the upper one, because that 90-degree bend right there is just a pain in the ass to deal with, and I'm not at all confident in my ability to mask it effectively. And third, these fucking hands have been having some fun issues this year, cervical disc issues and things like that have made them all tingly. And it's mostly under control at the moment. Most things are fine, but for some reason, the intricacies of masking shit just makes them go crazy. Not as crazy as wielding a pin vise, but, it's still not great. And so I figure we can get by with decals on this. Especially because, they don't need to be heavily faded or chipped or things like that. It's a high-vis Phantom. They're pretty colorful. We can live with it. So I want to start with the lower insignia, again, just to make sure that shit's working fine and all that stuff. And I'm also planning to use the furball sheet because they have these really nice, already cut insignias that can line up to where they need to go. So that'll make our life a lot easier. Okay, so the decal has been dipped and is kind of soaking and loosening right now. And so it's time to go ahead and get some Mr. Mark Setter on this. Oh, come on. More Mr. Marksetter, I guess. Okay. So that is on there. Going to let that set for a few minutes, come back and make sure it's all worked in, and then time to hit it with some fun stuff to make it really settle down. Okay, while the insignia sets, I'm going to go ahead and move this up here, and we're going to start work on the tail. Now, VMFA 323, the Death Rattlers, in 1967, had a marking arrangement on the tail where basically you had two brown stripes, one running kind of the whole length up here, and one running a good deal of the length down here. Both of them have, brown stripes with yellow diamonds in them. And you've got like a cool snake, a rattler, basically, on the rudder, kind of bleeding over a little bit onto the actual tail itself. And I've got many, many sheets of Phantom decals that I've accumulated here, but there are two that I was considering for laying out the markings on this. First one is the AOA sheet, which has, really, really rich, nice color. I'm very happy with that brown. But this one is not, to my knowledge, sized to the Tamiya kit. So, it's probably sized to the Academy or something like that. I'm not sure. But we've got all the stripes there. And then I've got an Edward sheet that was kind of, edited up a little bit to fit the Tamiya kit. and then re-released. This is actually, as you can see here, the Good Morning Denang marking. So from that Academy boxing from years ago, this is all of them, but it's like the new style Edward decals with the peel away film and all that shit. But those browns are awful. I mean, just really bad. Like, they don't come anywhere close in terms of saturation, liveliness, whatever. They just don't hit for me. So, fuck. I really wanted to use those, but I can't justify. Maybe I can justify like the WS, right? Those look fine, but the stripes, nah, it's not going to happen. So let's go ahead and see here if these stripes actually fit. And the good thing is they gave us 2 of each, so got a little bit of space to play, I think. Grab us some Mr. Mark Setter. This has become sort of my favorite setting solution. I don't really know why, but I like it. That actually fits. How about that? All right, let's get the next one. Okay, that was a bit more of a fight than I thought. Making sure that shit is aligned, but it's looking pretty cool. Okay, now I'm going to hop over to Edward for the WS. Yay. Yeah, I'm not happy with that. I fucked that up pretty bad. Oh well. Okay, so we're back to the AOA sheet this time. Okay. That looks pretty awesome. We'll let that set for a little tiny bit. Come back and put on the snack. Alright, next up, let's put a motherfucking snake on this motherfucking plane. And yes, I've been waiting all build to say that. Okay, so this guy sits way down here. Basically just like that. Cool. That looks pretty badass. Let it sit for a little while, and we'll pick it up after shit cools down. Okay, now let's move on to some fun with the upper insignias. For these, I am using the furball insignias because they are already cut to line up nicely with the Tamiya Fun. Great question is going to be how I handle all the maneuverings, though. Good Lord, I almost got it in one. You can see right back there, got this little indentation that it's kind of formed around. Yeah, it's in there. Cool, we'll just let that sit for a few and then we'll get the part on the actual folded tip of the wing. But check that out. And just for, a little preview of where this is heading, here is the one on the underside. I got the extended, or the folded tip. And just for a preview on where this is all going, here is the one for the folded wingtip. You can see how nicely this is sucked into all this detail along here, and how it just grabs right into the hinge detail. Same here on the underside. Everything is looking nice and clean. I had some reservations about these furball decals because some of the stencils I used just were really thick, but these insignias, at least, they are fantastic. So let that do its thing, and we'll come on back. Okay, so the F4 has a whole lot of Okay, so the F4 is pretty well sorted for its main markings. It's got the insignias in place. It's got, Marines, the VMFA logos. It's got the bureau numbers up front. Everything is looking pretty solid. Even the tail back here is coming along. However, I don't know why. Fucking compressor. However, I don't know exactly why it happened, but somehow I lost a little bit of paint back here when I was applying the insignias to the folded wing. I'm not really sure what the deal is, how it happened. It hasn't happened anywhere else, but that is obviously something I need to fix, especially because there are stencils that go in that area. So I'm going to go ahead and tackle that, basically sand it very carefully so I don't sand the decal too. Uh, you know, probably grab a post-it note to stick around there or something like that, and just touch that up and get it back to something close to what we have. Because I do want to have this surface touched up and kind of beat up and all that good stuff. So that's going to be really boring, and I'm not going to inflict that on y'all. So I'm going to pause, deal with that, get it repainted, and we'll be back to do all of the fun stencils, of which, at least on the decal sheet, there are a whole fucking lot. Now, I'm not going to be doing all of these because the other F4 is going to get all of these, but this one is going to be a bit more kind of banged up, so I want to have a good chunk of these just not there. So let me get this little boo-boo on the wing cleared up, and I'll be right back. Okay, moving into upper surface stencils. Moving into upper side stencils on the F-4B. I'm working on the upper port fuselage first. So, fun little things like this. AOA decals are doing a pretty solid job so far for me. And I like the fact they're not super thick, chunky black. They're more like a muted gray, which should work really well on this color. But I should also note that the side here is going to be extremely tough to film as I'm doing this, so I'll probably just be popping in and out as I'm attaching some of these things. Now there's I don't know, I would say a rumor, but there's kind of a widespread take out there that all these stencils on the Phantom didn't necessarily last that long. And, you know, they got painted over pretty quickly with touch-ups and things like that. And I'm planning to basically follow that path. And, you know, this will probably get, I don't know, maybe a quarter of the stencils or half the stencils that it would specifically get if I were doing it, you know, all in style. So that'll be fun. Figure out where to do that. This is the one really frustrating thing about these stencils. Sometimes they stick like glue, and other times they flop all over the damn place. It's really tough to tell which it's going to be. Okay, so picking up a bit further along in the stenciling journey, as you can see, I've got pretty much the fuselage stencils more or less sorted, and now I'm working on the upper wing stencils, which we can actually see on camera without me having to hold shit at weird angles. So, same basic process. These AOA decals just need a little quick dip in water, especially because I'm using heated water. And then, just a little dollop of Mr. Mark Sutter. Get that kind of set up. Make sure the decal's doing the slip and slide. Okay. And sometimes it'll do this bullshit where it just like sticks. Don't want that. Want to move it. Just like so. Let's get the next one down next to it. And I'm still very much trying to figure out how many stencils I want to put down here, because I do want to have the touch-ups, I do want to have the filth, but at the same time, as you can see on the fuselage here, these are really subtle stencils, much more subtle than the ones from like Furball or Edward. They're nice thin font, sort of a more of a gray instead of just straight up black, and so they're not that overpowering like they can be on some others. And basically, as these things set up a bit more, I come in with actual decal solvent, kind of lock them down. But for the most part, Mark Setter handles a whole lot of it. And I'll just note, holy fucking shit. There's so much here to go through. This one's extra fun because it goes right next to another stencil. So you get the idea on the nose steps. Let me go ahead and knock out the rest of these, and then we'll pick back up on the rest of the stuff that comes on the leading edges, as well as back here on the actual wings. Okay, let's go ahead and plop down a few nose step stencils, shall we? There are 3 of them on each wing. Little small fucking things. First one kind of goes right about there. My pile of discarded decal paper on the floor and on my paper towel over here, absolutely hilarious. Suck up a little bit of that Mr. Mark Sutter. And if you hear some weird ass noises, the wind outside, I don't know what the deal is with 2022, but springtime in Texas is usually windy as shit. This year, it's just taking it to pretty hyperbolic levels. It's been like steady 25-mile-an-hour winds outside, gusting to like 40. I'm waiting to hear my little driveway table with its glass top tip over and shatter, but thankfully not yet. Again, the joys of working around the folded wingtips. Definitely a lessons learned for next time I build a Tamiya Phantom. Okay, so pretty much like that. And then as these things get on there, come back through with some MIG ammo ultra decal fix. I really do like this stuff. And just make sure that we're sealing shit that we've already placed. Okay, so the decals are done. Got a bunch of stencils, all that kind of fun bullshit going on. Now it's time to seal these in before moving into the next phases. And for this, I'm using All Clad Aqua Gloss because it's non-reactive with the paint. As much as I love my lacquer clears, when you put lacquers on top of decals, sometimes weird shit can happen. This is also going to help with the carrier film, the thickness, and all that stuff. Even though these AOA decals are not what I would call thick. So after a shitload of decals, here we are with the decaled up F-4B Phantom in VMFA 323 markings. Overall, I think the Aqua Gloss did a pretty good job of hiding the decal film where it needs to be hidden, and anywhere that it maybe didn't, it's just a quick sandback and maybe a reapplication just to get us back on track. But yeah, this thing now looks like a Death Rattler. Cool. So what is up next? Well, next we have a couple different paths we can go in. We can get straight into things like panel line washes and whatnot, or I can go ahead and hop back here with the heat shielding and deal with the exhaust staining and whatnot along this little ridge of the heat shield, as well as up here with all the rivets. I'm honestly not sure which one I'm going to take yet, which path I'm going to go on, whether I want to dive to this first or to doing some fun things with the overall surface. I'm probably going to take a night or two and just play with tanks and do some video editing while I make up my mind. But we're at the point where the decals are a nice, happy place, and that is a big relief because that is probably the diciest and most tedious work of this whole build. So with that, I will go ahead and sign off and invite you all to sign on to Patreon at patreon.com/DukesModels if you want to get these videos a bit early before they drop on the YouTubes. And otherwise, stay tuned. Hopefully it won't be as long between videos as it has been recently. And I will catch y'all later.